What do you believe? What's your deepest fundamental belief, and how do you express it in word and action in the world? When we express our beliefs clearly, when we do them consistent with our actions, then we have a frame of meaning that reaches out into the world. That frame of meaning attracts others who have the belief system that resonates with us. Now, if you happen to be a business, that resonating allows your customers to decide to come and work with your product or service. Educators to reach out to students. Organization leaders to lead effectively. Family members to understand each other more deeply. Michael Liebowitz brings here in this podcast an exciting way of walking through how to look at, discover, and express our own frame of meaning. And by doing so, reach out into the world, connect with others, and to be able to help our world. Enjoy the podcast. Hi, I'm Norah Jones. Welcome to It's About Language. This podcast connects language and culture to life, learning, and hope. You'll experience insightful conversations with creative leaders in the fields of education, business, arts, and science. My guests shed light on the impact of language and culture on individuals and society as they share their stories and experiences. You'll be informed and inspired as we explore how language and culture make us human and bring hope in the midst of a challenging world. Hi, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this podcast with my new friend, Michael Liebowitz. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Norah. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. I'm super excited about our conversation because, well, it's certainly wonderful to have somebody that is an expert in the field of behavioral neurology. I'm trying to watch my steps here a little bit as we have our conversation, right? But I can tell you that, first of all, you're just a delightful human being, and I hope that everyone will remember all the way through this podcast, and I'll remind them again when we get to the end as well, that the information about mindmagnetizer.com, we invite everybody to go to mindmagnetizer.com and take a look at what Michael Liebowitz is up to, because, Michael, you're up to really cool things. You know, when we were chatting, I'll give our listeners a little bit of an introduction that as a Gallup certified coach, I am used to working with the idea that we have raw talents, and that as we mature and as we work on being an adult that's trying to reach excellence in the world, that we pause and then we can apply our talents more effectively by focusing. And we call those strengths when we get to that. And right. That bridging of pause, that pause between raw excitement and survival with the limbic system and accomplishing our really gifting tasks to make our own lives and that of others better, that pause, that bridge, that's been something that I'm still in search of and finding other pathways to discover. But you have done it in the field of brand strategy, in the idea of corporate work. So describe what you're doing, please, and how you make this field of meaning happen.
Yeah. So essentially, as one of my clients so astutely put it, because I can say whatever I want about what I do, and it's filtered through my experience of life, but when someone who doesn't have quite the background I do in behavioral neurology goes, oh, you help me figure out what I need to say so that people want to work with me. Like, okay, that's a great way to distill it down. Thank you so much.
There you go. Exactly. Right.
Sometimes you got to get off of your ivory tower, out of your own head, and like someone says, "Oh yeah, you just help make me figure out what the heck I need to say out there in the world." Yeah. And they had it right. I work in this space of brand strategy, which is a cryptic word. I don't often use the word brand anymore. Because it just doesn't quite describe what brand is a terrible word to describe what a brand is. It's the weirdest thing ever.
That's interesting. We'll need to perhaps return to
Right?
that at some particular point because
But
we are
essentially it
talking
comes
about
down-
language.
Yeah. Essentially, it comes down to how are you being perceived? That's really what it's all about. What are other people's perception of you? And how do you guide that perception based on how you communicate? And I tell everyone who listens, everything is communication, right? And if you're in business, your communication is not just the things it says on your website or the things you talk about in your sales conversations or on your social media. How you communicate is also included in what kind of offers you have. It's included in the experience that your client has of working with you. These are all forms of communication. And here's something to understand. You are not actually in control, to use the word again, in control of your brand. You do not own your brand. Your brand, the perception of you, lives in the mind of your customer.
Interesting.
The most you can do is give them the right clues so that they come to the perception you want them to have, right? That's
Okay.
the most you can do. But there is an art and a science to it. And that essentially is the core of my business. This is what my client said, like, oh, you get me saying all the things I need to say. Well, basically, we've mapped out what are the very specific frames and specific language, even keywords, to be using so that the audience gets the right perception of you that you want them to have. And this is important because that perception equals a yes or a no. Okay?
Wow, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about it being an art and a science, and you have these two backgrounds. How did you come to this realization? What led you to recognize the language and the meta language of this experience?
I'm so glad you asked this question because as of like a month ago, I had a revelation of my own that I've actually been interested in this territory since first grade.
Oh, first
Yeah.
grade. That gives you a pretty good runway there, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. It was in first grade that I was first exposed to kids teasing one another, right? Mm-hmm. Whether I was on the receiving end or watching it happen to someone else. I never quite understood that dynamic, that kid, whether me or someone else says a thing or does a thing, that suddenly others perceive. Of course, you're in sixth grade, you don't have the awareness to make sense of anything like on this level. But looking back, I didn't understand how things got perceived that way. It's like, wait, that seemed pretty reasonable to me, and the teasing happens? I don't get it. Where's the connection? I never quite fit in that way.
Interesting.
And I realized that was like a big moment for me. And it has been that fundamental question of, well, how come we treat each other this way? That through my life and eventually studying all the various modes of understanding this, it started with that sort of first exposure in the world.
Isn't that interesting?
So eventually I started studying neurolinguistic programming, and I started studying developmental stages, which comes out of classic psychology, and a bunch of other three-letter acronyms that no one's ever heard of, so I never say them anymore. Only one person I've ever met said, oh, I know what that is. I'm like, you're kidding. Like,
Well, we won't stress our audience out
Yeah.
today. We'll just go right to the storytelling. That's
yeah.
That's wow, first grade. So
Yeah, it goes all the way back then. And honestly, I got to tell you, Nora, my story and the way it starts, though specific to me, the frame of it is common to every single person. There's always a reason why we gravitate to the work we do in the world. And it comes from the beliefs that were formed, believe it or not, since birth through 6 years old, right? So about the
Right.
time you're starting first grade, right?
yes.
Something happened that instilled a belief in us. that later on in life is really resonating in our system, really a core belief that's operating, that has led us to the type of work that we do. It's true for every single person. And part of my job is to find what that core belief is. Because here's the cool thing about how human beings work. We relate to and make sense of our world based on our beliefs. Yes. So when you go out there and communicate from the viewpoint and on the level of your beliefs, it is like a lighthouse to every other person out there who shares the same beliefs you do. So when they hear it, 100 people might do the exact same thing you do. But if you communicate on belief level, right, whatever belief is operating there, the people who share that same belief, suddenly all the other ones go away because our nervous system notices this connection. And we feel this as resonance and attraction. It's just how we work.
That is phenomenal. And I know that in these podcasts, in my work as an educator and in publishing world, we've talked a lot about the recognition that there is the underlying word, the underlying concept, indeed, yes, that we begin to name it, we begin to move into it, but what you're saying here is that that's a belief, that's a perspective, that's how we come at this. Again,
great way
as
to
a
put it. Yep.
Gallup person, I'm thinking about the natural way that we see the world, our perspective, our lens. But I'm just fascinated, again, every time I speak with you about how you then turn this into helping the person to articulate that belief, find that word so that perspective can be shared. And you're applying it to business, but this can be the work of a parent, of a teacher, of
absolutely,
a leader, of everyone.
Yeah. One of the I have a ton of sayings to help understand, to create clarity and understanding. But one of the I don't know if this is an analogy or a metaphor or whatever, but
never been able to figure that out myself.
Yeah. Someone who knows grammatical structure in the English language can figure it out. But it's a good story. And like I like to say, the person with the strongest belief wins. Okay? Say
that again. That was a very strong,
in any
powerful.
human interaction, the person with the strongest belief wins. And here's the example I like to give. And whether you have children or not, you've experienced this. If the child believes they deserve that piece of candy more than their parent believes they don't, guess who's getting candy, right? Because eventually the beliefs will align, right? And so the kid will keep trying and keep trying and keep trying to get that piece of candy. And eventually, if the parent doesn't hold a strong belief that, no, you don't, but actually they're operating another belief, could be, I just want quiet here, or whatever belief is not quite as strong about that candy as the child, eventually their belief systems will align and the kid gets candy. But if you ever notice a child demand or ask for something, and that parent has a strong belief and they say, no, that's not happening, the child typically doesn't try again.
Interesting.
Because they know the strongest belief was on the other side, right?
Interesting. So they can feel it, is what you're saying.
Yes.
They can intuit.
Yeah, we can tell. And so the same thing is true, not just of children, but for all human beings. In any situation, the person with the strongest belief wins. Ask any negotiator. They'll go, oh yeah, this is this cornerstone of my success, right, is believing in your position. And there's more that goes into negotiation, but that's got to be there. The person who doesn't have a strong belief in their position ain't going to win that negotiation. But the same thing is true for how you can communicate about your business. And this is why we go back to, if you communicate from a standpoint of beliefs, not only are you attracting people who share the same belief, but you become the strongest belief in the room.
Wow.
You become more believable because your belief in this is so strong. So my job is to extract that from you and turn it into messaging so that your messaging is really connecting and it's really powerful because you're the strongest belief in the room.
Wow. As a career educator and certified Gallup Strengths coach, I engage with you and your team to bring energy, focus, and breakthroughs to all you do. Fluency Consulting provides workshops, presentations, talks, and team building events for K-16 educators and education-oriented organizations and businesses. Get energized, experience new insights, pathways, and perspectives. It's such a privilege to create and distribute this podcast. I'd like to ask for your help, though. Please leave a tip by going to the show notes of this episode or by visiting my website at www.fluency.consulting. Your contribution will allow me to continue these life-giving and hope-giving conversations. That's www.fluency.consulting. Thank you so much and enjoy. Explain how you do this. What do you do? What are some examples of this? Well, I'm going to use the word magic, doggone it,
Okay, thank you.
even if it is neurological. This experience happening.
Yeah. So, just foundationally, the work I do is we spend an hour and a half to 2 hours together in a series of meetings, right? So each meeting is about that long. But it's really the first meeting that's the big win, to tell you the truth. I want to get all my clients the big win right away.
Okay.
Because everything else has to flow from there. And in that meeting, I always start with 2 questions. And I'll just give them to your audience right now. The first one, easy to answer. What do you do? And what I'm looking for is, and I tell them, like, just answer it. Don't think about it. Just don't try to make it the best thing to say. Just blurt something out. What is that you do?
Okay.
Because not only do I want to know, like, well, what do you do? But I want how you frame it. I want the exact words you use to describe it. That already begins to give me the window into what's going on in your system. But that's not the really important question. The really important question is, once we have that, I'm asking you, well, what's important to you about that? Now, this question is specifically designed to elicit a belief. There's 2 things about this question. This is a question about you, not your audience. Lots of people want to say, well, I want to make sure my customers get X. I'm like, pause, time out. Nope, we ain't talking about them. This is about you. This is about your beliefs. You get to define what your message is, right?
Okay, right.
Just a little side note here. I liken it to going to a party, right? And someone comes up to you and says, who should I be so that you'll like me? It's like,
Whoa.
Ooh, icky. No one likes that,
Ooh,
right?
Ooh, no.
No. That's the equivalent of going out to your audience and saying, hey, what kind of things do you want? And I'll just tell you that, right? Of sourcing your message from your audience.
Wow.
Instead, we go to the party and we say, hi, my name is Michael. You assert who you are. And you get along with some people and maybe not so much with others. You have to do the same thing. And that's what I'm getting at here is you have to understand what your core belief is to say, hey, this is what we're all about. And so this is what that question, what's important to you about what you do, and specifically you, not your client. And it takes some, now we're in games together, right? Because the way our neurology is set up is we don't quite know the answer to that question. And so my job is to listen and ask, oh, you mentioned this keyword. Let's tell me more about this. And I'm literally doing therapy in the room.
Michael, that is
right?
totally amazing. Yes.
Yeah, I'm literally doing therapy on you and technically on your business, as if your business is a person, because to your audience, the way our brains perceive your business, it actually is to this part of the brain another person. It's kind of weird how we work that way.
Yeah.
So that's my job. And from there, we figure out the core belief, what that means, because we relate to each other based on what something means to us. And a bunch of other things have to come out of that. But that's how it starts. It's quite surprising what can come out. Just to give you an example.
Please.
I worked with a young woman. She was a wealth manager. Just recently hung up her shingle. I work with startups. Another client I work with, they've been around for 30 years, right? But she was just starting out. So we got started. And it turns out what comes out of this exploration of beliefs is that she has a core belief about, well, you have to be ready for whatever life throws at you, right? This was a big resonant belief in the system that not just led her to her business, but led her to like why this work in the world in the first place, right? Of financial planning and wealth management. Well, that means she is not a financial planner. She's not a wealth management person. In fact, no one is in the business they think they're in. What she is she's the person that gets you financially ready for whatever life throws at you, good or bad. That's the business she's in. She just happens to do it through the mechanisms of wealth management and financial planning, right?
Holy smoke.
So instead of going out there and saying, hey, I'm a financial planner and I'm really good. I have all this training, I have all the certificates, and I have X assets under management and blah, 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 which all the other 200 asset managers in the Bay Area say the same thing, right? Because there's a lot of them here.
Right.
Instead, she goes out there and says, you know what? A belief. You have to be financially ready for whatever life throws at you. And what happens is anyone who shares that same belief just instantly sees her message, right? And go, oh, yeah. And they're paying attention to her.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Anyone who doesn't share that belief, she is invisible to them. And you know what? They weren't going to be good clients anyway. Right?
Yes.
So she's attracting these people. She's becoming a fixture in her community. That people who want to be financially ready for whatever life throws at them. Now, that's good and bad, right? It's like, hey, you want to be able to afford that opportunity that just came up? Fantastic. Or something bad happened and it's going to cost a lot, like a medical thing. Like, you're ready for it. This is what they really want, right? This is the belief they share that's connecting them.
You know, Michael, you deal with this all the time, so I don't mind confessing all of my weak-mindedness in this. Even when you asked, like, what do you do? Just sitting here listening to you and being with you, I realized that I would probably have to change my answer knowing that you were listening for something deeper, okay? And the second part that strikes me is that your part there, that story, that wonderful story that you just told, is not something, in fact, this is why you are working in this business. This is why you have the Mind Magnetizer workshops, that I don't think anybody would sit down and say, you know, I'm going to think about this over breakfast today. I really am not doing financial planning. No, I'm really thinking about making sure that life would. So to evoke this, I could see where you referred to it as therapy, because you're actually taking a look at a deeper, more core belief that was developed by age 6, according to the beginning that you gave us.
Mm-hmm. It got reframed over the years as we get older, but the core belief happened at age 6.
Yeah,
we're going to use the adult version of the belief, but yeah.
But still, being prepared, not being taken by surprise. I can imagine there are events or experiences in this person's life, and of course I don't know her, and we just can enjoy speculation, but I can imagine where some of that might have come from a behavioral point of view, but it doesn't really matter. The fact is, when you're talking to people, you're working with the way they express in words. What other kinds of things do you do, though? Do you watch behaviors? Or do you watch how they're responding to the kinds of questions that you're asking? How does metalinguistic behavior work here, too?
Here's what I'm looking at when I'm engaging with a client. Yes, I'm looking at framing. I'm looking at the words. Related to that is something called isomorphic structure, like the structure that is the same shape. So as we go, I'll notice that they keep coming back to the same sort of, not the same word, but it's like pointing in the same territory, has the same structure to the idea, which is a big clue, like this is something important in the world.
Yeah.
I am noticing physiology. Now we're on Zoom, so I'm noticing physiology from like the neck up, but
Yeah.
facial expressions and such like that, I'm noticed, but only insofar as I'm looking for what's really landing in the system rather than something that's interesting to them, but not territory we really need to go deep in.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
It's all helping me understand what's going on in the mental map of the people I'm talking to, and I don't just do this with like solo business owners where we're one to one. I've had 9 people in the room managing all of this and finding the isomorphic structure between 9 different points of view type
Interesting.
of thing. And just a feather in my cap, I once had a CEO of a company, a tech company down in Silicon Valley. After working together, he took me, because they hired me to help them with messaging, but he took me aside and said, I don't know how you did this, but we've been arguing over some of this stuff for 5 years. And I'm talking someone's about to leave argue, right? We're talking the executive level here. We're not talking employees. And he said, you got us all agreeing on what this company is really all about in 2 hours.
Wow.
How did you do that? And I said, well, it happens, right?
If you're an
But yeah,
expert, it happens.
that is one of the things that some clients hire me to do that as well. Not just like what message, but like what are we really all about, and how do we all get on the same page about it? Mm-hmm. I call that the alignment type of thing. Like so, marketing teams and sales teams and the CEO vision are all aligned, and everyone's talking about the same thing. Because you may or may not be surprised at how sometimes that doesn't happen.
I'm not too surprised. I'm not too surprised, but
Yeah.
I'm relieved to know that periodically they do, and especially that with what you do, that alignment can happen, and it does
Oh yeah, it's
bring
always there.
peacefulness and focus in
It's
particular.
always there. There's either a middle of the Venn diagram where everyone overlaps, or there's what I call the meta frame that contains everything, right? But there is always something there, a commonly held belief that we're all working under. It's just never been spoken of. It's never been acknowledged. And we've all been, internally, we've all been speaking it to ourselves or acknowledging it from our own point of view. And so the words I use might be different from the words that person or that person would use. And we think we're not communicating, but we are actually talking about the same thing.
Actually
Right?
communicating.
My
They're
job is to
actually
figure out how that's all connected.
There are 2 questions that come to my mind, please, Michael, and one is to help us to get an idea of the impact of this for the businesses, the ones that are solely owned, the ones that are in fact groups or larger that you have had the history with. So that's the first thing is let's hear a little bit about the impact and what
Sure.
folks see, because I'm going to go to the second part.
Okay.
Is we have folks that are not business owners, although they might be thinking of being,
Mm-hmm.
but they all are customers, so that part we can take a look at. But to apply these principles, again, more broadly to sharing meaning in families, communities, and institutions.
Yeah.
So those 2, please.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I do have a mission of my own. And this mission was revealed to me that the business had already started, but shortly after I started developing this program, I was at a trade show in Chicago.
Okay.
And this convention center is massive. I don't know if you've been to that, I forget what it's called, McCormick maybe, I think it is, in Chicago.
No.
But this was a houseware show. I had a colleague of mine and I had invented a product that is a housewares product. And so we're in the show. Think of the largest Bed Bath & Beyond you can think of, and then multiply that probably by 15.
Wow.
Okay?
Okay.
Massive. And they're grouping product categories next to each other, right? Makes sense, because this is for buyers to come and figure out what products they want to buy for their shelves. Not retail buyers, I'm talking retail store buyers, right? And so I'm noticing the language that they're all using. This person's, I'm just going to use humidifiers, right? Whatever. There's person or brand of humidifier A, which has a salesperson there, and brand humidifier B and C, right?
Okay.
And I would talk to each one of them, And I noticed like they're all saying the same thing, and they're like, I can't tell the difference.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
Not only that, but I started to step into this frame of, oh my God, all these messages are terrible. And I'm feeling bad. I'm being bombarded by all these messages. And the messages are all about transaction. Basically saying, hey, buy my thing. Right? And when I said, all these people, half of these companies are going to be gone in 5 years because they're all blending in, or going to get bought out or just fail. I said, if only they understood that instead of saying, buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing, that they should be saying, here's what my thing means in your world.
Yeah.
Here's what my thing means in your world. They could be talking to different audiences based on meaning and attracting all the customers they need and have thriving businesses right next to each other, where I can hear, here's what I mean. Company A says, here's what I mean in your world. Company B says, well, that's great. Here's what we mean in your world. And I'm going to resonate with the meaning that feels good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And this person next to me goes, oh, I was actually resonating with this other meaning over here. Legitly healthy businesses. And here's what happened. In that moment, I stepped into the current world we have of a child moving through the world, and just the commerce and communication of life that bombards us every day is all about transaction, 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 and how that impacts how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive the world around us. It's all transactional, right?
Right.
What if instead we had a world where that child is growing up with these messages of commerce, instead saying, here's what we mean. Here's what we mean to you. Here's what we mean. Here's what we meant to be, right? Instead of, so now we're being surrounded by messages of meaning.
Meaning.
Imagine the impact of a world where everyone grows up around messages of meaning. And here's what I mean in your world, and how, in investigating and understanding meaning. I wanted to live in that world.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's kind of my mission, is to get businesses communicating from the standpoint of meaning rather than transaction, because it's really how we engage in our world. And plus, I think if we can all get there, we just got a better world, to boot.
Yes.
So as far as impact, specific impact on my clients, yes, they're 2xing to 5xing their business. Fantastic. But your audience isn't all business owners. So what is the impact of communicating via beliefs or understanding your own belief system? It really comes down to a better experience of life, honestly.
Interesting.
If you've ever been in an argument, friend, spouse, whatever, the argument is really over a mismatch of what you believe to be true about whatever you're talking about and what that means to you. If you understood your own belief system and the belief system of the person you're talking to, well, then we start understanding their point of view. Right?
Right.
That facilitates communication rather than we get stuck thinking my point of view is the only point of view. And it's not like we do this consciously.
No.
Right?
Agreed.
Right. This is all, it's not even unconscious, but it is happening below the surface a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we only see it through one lens. And by understanding, but we don't think critically about what our lens is.
Right.
And when we do, we start to open up to, oh, I'm curious what that lens over there that I'm talking to is all about. And that's how we can communicate better. And I think impact-wise, has a tremendous, tremendous effect on how we relate to each other. There we are back in first grade. How do we relate to each other?
To each other, no question.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating, again, because we come back beautifully to that circle, Michael, thank you, where we have meaning across, well, the cultures of individuals, if we want to put it this way. We talk about the perspective of individuals, and we talked about the culture of institutions, of businesses,
Yes.
but that still have a belief system that's in common. And our world is taking a look at, we need to be taking a look at more and more about understanding the meaning according to others' perspectives.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful choice to make, to come at life that way.
Yes, It's interesting. You frame it as a choice. It's almost not a choice to see it that way. It's just how our brains are wired to see the world this way. However, things fall apart when our brains are actually wired to see the world through our own filters, our own beliefs and meaning systems. The choice it's not really a choice, it's just an awareness of, oh, yeah, there's another point of view to this, right? There is, you've been to the eye doctor, you wear glasses, I wear glasses. That machine that they say, is this clear or this one or two, right? They keep throwing a bunch of lenses in front of you.
Right.
That's actually life right there is, what does this look like with this lens in front of you? Now, you and I are selecting the ones that make things clear for us. In this case, the specific biology of our eye, right?
Right.
But for the next person on that machine, they're going to get different lenses, right? And just this awareness that everyone's looking at things from a different lens. And here's what's going to blow your mind. The people we are most friendly with are the people whose lenses are really close to ours, because we see things the same way. When we encounter someone whose worldview, whose beliefs, whose lens of reality is different enough from ours, to extend this metaphor, well, seeing through their eyes makes everything look super blurry and we can't make sense of anything.
Interesting.
So that's why we just can't relate to them. And in fact, in the current political climate, that's exactly what's going on. The definition, the identities of the two political parties, the lens through which they describe the world, have drifted so far apart that to see it from the other one's point of view, the world is unrecognizable. And it's scary, and so on and so on and so forth. Whereas in earlier days, the lenses were close enough in focus together that we could see it from that point of view. And okay, you dress funny, but you're genuinely a good person, right? You're different from me, but you're generally a good person. So that's what's going on right now.
Michael,
in my business, I call it like kind. We're all looking for like kind.
Like kind.
Yeah. And our like kind is dependent on our identity, our sense of who we are and who we are not. We want to hang out with people who are like us, because to a certain part of our brain, getting back to behavioral neurology, that says, well, they are safe to be around.
Safety.
And people who are not like us, our brain, this part of our brain that doesn't do language, doesn't do logic or reason, just does safety and emotion, essentially, is saying, well, you're not like kind, therefore you are a potential threat to survival. Best not take a chance. I kind of like breathing. So the emotions of that come out, and we interpret that as, oh, I don't like that person, or they're weird, or whatever, right?
Right.
So that's what's going on.
All right. Well, then I have to go to this next question.
Yeah.
When we're shopping in a extremely large Bed Bath & Beyond experience,
Sure.
we have a variety of humidifiers or dehumidifiers that we can listen to the meaning of in our lives. We can safely make a choice and thereby make our environment that we are going to place this object in more comfortable for us. If I take that analogy right there, and now I say, now I have a world full of that which when I take it into my house, I'm going to feel comfortable, but the others exist. How do I feel comfortable? I understand the meaning of one. I might indeed purchase that, if you will, and bring it into my life.
Yeah.
But I also need to be able to live with and help others to live with and understand that there are these other frames of meaning.
Right.
How do we do that? It had some much larger stakes, clearly.
Yeah. So you're talking about both a specific example of a product, but also it's a metaphor.
Yes.
At the same time. I mean, we can easily buy the humidifier we want and completely ignore the other ones because it's a humidifier, right? Someone else will buy that one. But as a metaphor, if I'm selecting these people or these things to include in my life, and I love that you used that word, because that framing, because that's exactly what I use as well. And if that one over there is so different, how do we still get along, right?
Yes.
This is where culture and larger frames come into play,
Okay.
right? For instance, I'm on Facebook, but I have a very unique experience of Facebook than most people. I don't pay attention to my feed at all. I'm in 2 or 3 private groups on Facebook, and I just go straight to the group. And one of them is this super nerdy. We talk about science fiction movies and books and D&D. I mean, it is the nerdiest thing you've ever experienced, and I love it, and these are my people. Right?
Right.
So I can hang out with them. And there's another group out there, I'm sure, talking about parenting, right? Now, I'm not a parent.
Okay.
I don't connect with that group and what they're all about and that identity of being a parent. So I'm not going to hang out in that group. But there is a meta frame, a larger frame that we can all exist in that says, and this is culture, or even just like the things you learned in kindergarten. Treat people nicely, right? Share your toys. I think there was that book, Everything I Really Needed to Learn in Life. I learned like in kindergarten or something like that.
Yes, right.
So there are meta frames that can hold these things together. Absolutely. And then there are some groups, some identities that completely violate the rules. We're talking maybe the frame of racism, right? Or cruelty of some kind. That we don't have to accept that at all,
Interesting.
right?
Okay.
That are even outside our meta frame of what generalized beliefs about the world would contain. Like these things fall outside of that for me, especially. I know only from my experience, those things definitely fall outside of my realm of this is what's okay. So I can feel good about rejecting those things. So that's how we get along. It's never just like I believe this, and it's a self-contained thing, and that's it. No, there's layers upon layers upon layers, and each one includes more and more. But the specificity of it gets more generalized and generalized, right?
Yes, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. Thank you so much. That it's a beautiful way of being able to express how it is that we go about creating those concentrics that
Yeah.
allow us to work with and experience and enjoy, but also to observe other items. You know, Michael, I'd like you to do one more thing for our listeners
Sure.
today. You have expressed so many amazing ideas. I hope people will listen to this several times to be able to extract some of the wisdom that you shared and some of the neat stories. But is there one more thing that you would like to make sure before we leave today that your listeners hear about or warned about or invited to? What else might you say to my audience today?
Oh, you just opened up a can of worms here. I got so many sayings and like insights and things like that. Um, First, I would like to get one thing out is if any of your audience is interested in learning more about how to apply what they heard me talk about in their business, I do have a monthly workshop. They can go to my website to register for it. The website is mindmagnetizer.com. And we do actual work in the workshop. The first part is learning about how our brains are actually wired to see messaging and to respond to it. And then we're going to take that into action, where we're going to work on the belief system of every single person, or brand, I should say, in the room. So you're going to come away with a much better message than whatever you think you got right now, guaranteed.
Cool.
But here's some other insights that I would like to let your audience understand. I already gave you some. The person with the strongest belief wins, so on and so forth.
Right.
But here's what's key. This is specifically for the business owners out there, because of course that's my realm. I do a lot of this work with business owners, and that is this: your job is not to convince anyone to buy from you. Your job is to share what you believe, find the people who share that same belief, and then offer them something that will help. This is the key to success in your business.
Wow. Wow.
Share what you believe. Find the people who believe the same thing you do, because of course they're going to resonate with that. And then you offer them something that's going to help their world, which is another way of saying product market fit, right?
Right.
And those are the things I work on in my program, but it is so fundamental to success. Now, if you want to extend that to everyone out there listening who doesn't own a business, and you're not really thinking about it this way, but as a metaphor that still holds true. Share what you believe. Find people who share your same belief, otherwise known as your friends, right?
Right.
And then what happens is you offer each other something that's going to help in our world, right? This is the secret to happiness, as far as I'm concerned, in life.
Indeed. What a wonderful invitation. Everyone can take you up on that. And I think that the time spent in pondering over those quotes, that approach, is in itself time well spent and will absolutely redound to a more peaceful and a more encompassing experience for people. I'm just truly grateful that you shared this understanding with our audience today.
Oh, thank you.
And look forward to them taking a look again on my website. I do have information, obviously, about Michael and about mindmagnetizer.com. You can sign up for the workshop there and find out more about what Michael does. But I also invite my listeners to take a moment to sit back and take some time to ponder the invitation that Michael has extended to you today based on his experiences and the transformations that he's already provided. So, Michael, again, what a great pleasure to have you today as my guest. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you, Norah. This has been a pleasure speaking with you and having this conversation. I really enjoy it. Appreciate you so much.
I appreciate too, and best of fortune, but especially best wishes in your work. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please share it and follow our socials at fluency_consulting. Check out my website, fluency.consulting, for more information on this guest and all my guests. And please donate, as it makes it possible for me to create and share these podcasts. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.